This is the board office. Just wanted to let everybody know that Create TV is going live. So whatever you say will be heard. We're not going live in our meeting quite yet, though.
Oh, thank you for that, because I wanted to say, hey, Mr. Carl Gordino. It's so good to see you.
And it's great to see you, Ms. Fernandez. How are you and Dan doing?
We're doing well. Thanks for asking. How's the family, all the kids?
Well, Leslie's right
there. A family affair.
Yay.
Super. It's so good to see you, Leslie. You guys look
good to see you.
Likewise. And we're looking forward to actually being able to have you two over for dinner again at some point.
Oh, yeah. Well, first we need a vaccine, and it can't show up on Halloween because that would be scary.
Yes. So true.
Oh, wow. Well, it's going to be a really fun evening with you and the resolution. And
You're
some
so
surprises
gracious.
that we've planned.
You are so gracious. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What a wonderful human being you are. Thank you.
Oh, you're too sweet. Thanks. How is Bloom Energy?
Well, it's day
Is all
35.
remote?
It's day 35, and they haven't fired me yet. So I'm counting that as a win. Yeah.
Yes.
Still employed. I love it. I love the culture and the vision and the mission, and a great CEO. So I'm enjoying it. Thank you for asking.
I had a really nice Zoom intro with Ahmad.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you two connected.
Yeah,
He's
we
a
connected.
Wonderful person.
He is. Really enjoyed just getting to know him. I didn't know him, but then he reminded me that we met on one of the fly-ins.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, that's good to know. Because there's a fly-in coming in. Well, a virtual in coming up. It's around the corner.
Yes, exactly.
So Carl, I can't imagine what it's like starting a new job when during COVID-19. I mean, in particular, you're such a social animal in terms of getting out there and meeting everybody, face to face. This has got to be an interesting transition.
It's been fascinating, but thanks to our Valley and technology, we can communicate.
2-minute warning.
Yeah.
Hello, President Chavez.
Hi.
Great to see you.
You too. Welcome back.
Thank you. And thanks to many of your hard work and leadership, we're able to run this 3-county Caltrain measure. So my early mornings, late nights, some lunch hours and weekends have been filled up with Caltrain advocacy. Yes, no, thank you. Larry, we're going to get that done for Morgan Hill.
Thank you, Carl, for staying with it.
Got to. The role that President Chavez and Mayor Liccardo and Jeannie Bruins and others played to get that where we could even go forward was just phenomenal. Nuria, you and Jim, wow, what Herculean efforts.
Good evening, board members. This is board office. Just wanted to let you know we're going to be broadcasting now and recording starting, so public will be watching us very shortly.
Well, good evening, everyone.
As we begin recording, I'm also going to begin our meeting. This is a VTA Board of Directors regular meeting of Thursday, September 3rd. I am now calling the meeting to order. I want to thank all of you for attending our meeting tonight. And at this time, I'm going to remind all of you to unmute your mics so that we can do a roll call. Elaine, will you call the roll?
Blankley, Bruins,
Present.
Carr,
Here.
Carrasco, Cortese,
Here.
Davis, Dieppe,
Present.
Ellenberg, Jones,
Here.
Nis, Ricardo, McAllister,
Yes.
Miller,
Present.
Nunez,
Present.
O'Neill,
Present.
Perales,
Here.
Rennie, Board Member Rennie. Okay, I will come back to you. Hendricks,
Attending.
Chavez.
Here.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Was there any member whose name was called that maybe didn't get to speak in time? Nope, everybody's here. All right. I'm going to ask for those.
Cindy, quickly, if Rob Rennie shows up, I'm his alternate, so I will bow out. But if he doesn't show up, I'm here.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask for those who are able to please stand, and Glenn will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to
To
the
the
flag
Of
of
the
the
United States of America
America.
and to
and
the
the
republic
republic
for which
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible.
indivisible,
with
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 liberty
liberty
and
and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. I'm now going to move to the orders of the day. This is 1.3. Staff is requesting that we hear regular agenda items 7.2, the BART Phase 2 Project FTA Grant Application Support, and 7.3, the BART Phase 2 Project Funding Development Implementation together. And staff is also requesting that we defer item 7.4, and this is an exclusive negotiating agreement for the Kurtner property. Any changes from my colleagues? Any further changes? If you could raise your little blue hands. Seeing none, I'm going to ask for motion to, let me just see. Do I need a motion for orders of the day?
Yes, Madam Chair, because we're making changes to the agenda.
All right. So I'm now going to request a motion.
So move, Ricardo.
We have a
Second,
motion.
Carr.
And then Glenn, did you want to speak to the motion?
I was gonna make the motion. I was trying to use the hands.
Thank you. There you go, Glenn. We have public speakers. What I'm not sure is if the public speakers are here to speak on orders of the day or under public comment. If you're here to speak on orders of the day, then please do. If it's public comment, I would ask that you wait. And I'm not sure how to do that exactly, but let's go forth.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to let everybody know that we did receive written comment from Roland LeBrun, which has been included as part of the packet. We currently have 10 speakers. First 3 speakers will be Angelina, Tanisha, and Roland.
Thank you.
Angelina, I'm going to unmute you. Please accept the unmute and begin speaking when you are ready.
Hello?
Angelina, please go on.
Hello, can you guys hear me here?
Yes, we can.
You guys are a bunch of fucking nigger monkeys,
my
fucking bitch ass niggers, fucking bitch. Stupid bitch, don't ever fuck you.
All right.
No, this fuck.
I'm going to ask if I can also be made a co-host.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the speakers in just a moment. All right, thank you. All right.
You're welcome. Our next speaker is Tanisha.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right, I am requesting that the whole
We'll go on to our next speaker.
Yes, our next speaker is Roland. I will unmute you.
Madam Chair, this is a follow-up to my letter. In the interest of time, I'm respectfully requesting that you move item 2.2 to consent. And if not, I'd appreciate if you could limit my friend Carl's comments to less than 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Next three speakers are Angel, Emily, and Jaden.
Hello, everybody. So I have a question, if that's okay.
Yes, go
Go ahead.
I think, yeah.
I apologize, Madam Chair, but that was a scam.
So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to try a couple more, and if they all end up like this, we're going to end this part and go to, we'll put public comment at a later time in the agenda, item 3. So this is to, I'm just going to say this to everybody who's on the phone right now. If you're speaking to item 1.3 orders of the day, please stay on the call. If you're not, then please wait to come back to item 3. All right, our next speaker.
Yes, our next speaker is Emily. I will unmute you, accept the unmute, and you may begin speaking when you're ready.
All you ladies.
All right. All right. Well, I think we're going to end public comment and move it over to item 3 for those who want to stay with us.
Madam Chair, this is Elaine. I'm going to lower all hands for right now.
Thank you.
Because it seems like.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you. We'll come back to item 3. All right. So item 2. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a motion and a second. May I get a roll call, please?
Yes, this is for orders of the day. Item 1.3, motion by Liccardo, second by Carr. Carr.
Aye.
Cortese.
Aye.
Diep.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Liccardo.
Aye.
McAllister.
Yes.
Nunez.
Yes.
Perales.
Sorry, aye.
Rennie.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Chavez.
Yes.
I'll just come back to Magdalena Carrasco. I think member Carrasco is absent. I think she's ill. So the motion passed.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to item 2.1, and this is to adopt a retirement commendation recognizing Gary Barretto, transit foreperson for 41 years of service, and Shirley Rayford, coach operator for 29 years of service. Shirley, our coach operator, demonstrated passion in her work. She is committed to safety, attained 15 years of safe driving, and earned the prestigious 1 Million Miles Operator Safety Award. Shirley is in the teleconference with us. And Shirley, I want to say a very special thank you for 29 years of service. It's good to see you. Thank you for being with us. And let's give Shirley a very warm round of applause from all of us. Thank you very, very much. And Shirley, did you want to say anything?
No.
No? Okay. Just thank you. Really, job well done.
Thank you.
Gary Barretto, a transit foreperson, was known for his commitment to his job and was respected by those who knew and worked with him. Gary provided 41 years of distinguished public service. I want to thank you very much. Let me just see, is Gary here? No? All right.
Madam Chair, he's not, but we have his photo up on the screen.
Oh, great. Great, great, great. I wanted to just give a big round of applause for him too and thank him so much for working with us for all those years. Item 2.2, let me just see. Item 2.2 is to adopt a resolution and commendation giving special tribute and due honor and recognition to Carl Guardino. We're going to start by moving agenda item 2.2.
This is Glenn. I'll make that motion.
So we have a motion from Glenn and we
Second by Larry.
and a second by Larry. So we're going to take a roll call vote and then we're going to go to the resolution itself.
This is for item 2.2, motion by Hendrick, second by Carr. Carr,
Aye.
Magdalena Carrasco is absent. Cortese,
Aye.
Dieppe,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo,
Aye.
McAllister,
Yes.
Nunez,
Yes.
Perales,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Absolutely, yes.
Chavez.
Yes, of course.
Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to just read a little bit of the resolution. And I'm really excited that Carl's here with us today. He's taken a break from working on a campaign, I know. And so we're really grateful to you and to your whole family for sharing so much of your time with us. This resolution by the Board of Directors of the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority is commending you, Carl. Oh, hello, Leslie. Whereas Carl Guardino served as the Vice President of the Santa Clara County Manufacturing Group from 1991 until 1994 before leading the Silicon Valley Leadership Group for almost 24 years. And whereas in this role, Carl Guardino was a dedicated and tireless advocate for local transportation funding and championed the successful 1996 Measures A and B, 2000 Measure A, 2008 Measure B, 2010 Measure B, 2016 Measure B campaigns in Santa Clara County, and in the 9-county Regional Measure 3 campaign in 2018. And whereas Carl Guardino's personal integrity and leadership was critical to winning voter approval of these ballot measures, creating major new funding sources for the capital and operating costs of VTA's BART extension to Silicon Valley, as well as construction of the Eastridge to BART Regional Connector Light Rail Extension, Caltrain enhancements and grade separations, the expansion of the Dearden Station, bus and light rail transit operations costs, and many other mobility improvements. And whereas throughout Carl Guardino's tenure as a CTC commissioner, he approved vital state support for VTA's BART extension, interchange improvements at 880 and Stevens Creek, US 101 Capitol YB Avenue, and US 101 SR 237 Matilda Avenue high occupancy vehicle lanes on I-880 and US 101, and the US 101 express lanes phase 3, the Alum Rock Bus Rapid Transit Project, the design of US 101 SR 25 improvements in the Willow Keys Complete Streets in San Jose, and the San Fernando Street Better Bikeway Project. And now, therefore, be it resolved that VTA Board of Directors hereby commends and expresses its sincerest and deepest appreciation to our friend Carl Guardino for his exemplary public service and leadership in improving the transportation in Santa Clara County and across the state of California. Be it further resolved that this resolution is presented with thanks and good wishes, with the thanks and good wishes of VTA, adopted by the VTA Board of Directors this 3rd day of September 2020. Carl, thank you for your dedication and commitment for transportation, housing, higher education, healthy food programs, and goodness only knows what else. We're honored and delighted that you're here, that you've done so much to help so many. And before you say a word, we have prepared a short video highlighting some of VTA's events that you've attended in all these years. Cue video. That is awesome. Good job, you guys. So with that, Carl, I'm gonna let you say a few words. And then I know we have some colleagues who'd like to say a few words. So Carl, do you want to go ahead and start?
Chair Chavez and members of the VTA board and staff and community colleagues, Leslie and I are just so humbled by the opportunity you've afforded us to play a small role in building a better valley for everyone. These campaigns remind me that pioneers don't have maps. We forge the trail that hopefully others can follow by working together and lifting each other up. Each of those campaign experiences that so many of us worked on together are precious memories that are building better paths forward for everyone that lives, works, and plays in our region. And I just cannot thank each of you enough, Chair Chavez, for all those campaigns together, Mayor Liccardo, for so many victories together, Jeannie Bruins, for your leadership on Caltrain together, General Manager Fernandez, for the professionalism and passion that you and your team bring to every aspect of your work to serve the public. It's truly a delight to work with each of you and for each of you in this endeavor to improve our valley's environment and its economy and its equity and inclusivity. I even think Roland LeBron will be glad that I only spoke for 60 seconds. Thank you all.
Thank you, Carl. I'm now going to see if any of my colleagues would like to weigh in. If you would use your little blue hands, and then I'll go to the public. And I'll start with Supervisor Cortese.
Well, Carl and Leslie, you are a team after all. Great to see you. Congratulations. Best of luck on all of your future endeavors, which I know we all know already began. But I do want to go back and just further punctuate that point that you just made about being a pioneer, because some of us were around. I think there's a few of us here tonight who were around when a decision had to be made to do that first VTA measure, because the votes weren't there on a board of supervisors. And that wasn't this board of supervisors, but the votes weren't there to do what had been traditional at the time for the board of supervisors to do a so-called A-B measure and move things forward. And it seems like, okay, no big deal. So VTA could just do that themselves and get a supermajority. No one had ever done that before. No one really thought it was possible to do that. I remember then Mayor Ron Gonzalez saying, you know, we can try that, but the likelihood of success is, you know, is almost nil. And of course, he decided he was willing to try it. And thank goodness that you came to some agreement to run that campaign, to be the pioneer that you've been. And, you know, I think after that, if you don't mind me putting it in very simple terms, your persistence, your stamina, your stick-to-itiveness after that initial campaign, whereby it just seemed like Carl Guardino wasn't going to ever quit, you know, until he knew that we were out of the woods. And it took a couple decades to get it to Santa Clara County, right? So thank you. Your legacy speaks for itself. It's certainly not something that can be summed up in 60 seconds or 120 seconds, and I'm not even going to attempt to do that. But history will be very kind to you, and appropriately so. Thank you so much.
Supervisor Cortese, thank you for your leadership and your friendship. We deeply appreciate it.
Any other colleagues like to say a word or two? Jeannie?
Thank you, Chair. Carl, you've been a highlight in my getting involved at the regional level. I am always so impressed with your boundless energy, your can-do and will-do attitude, and even your corny little isms that you do, whether it's chocolate and peanut butter, whether it's the cookies, but you've always have an incredible way of capturing everybody's attention, and I believe everybody's heart as well. So one of my greatest pleasures is having crossed paths with you and your lovely wife, Leslie. Best to both of you.
Sam?
Likewise.
Thank you. I've certainly said a lot about Carl, and I'll try to keep it to rolling 60 seconds or less. But I think one thing that it's often overlooked in this time that's so very divisive is how Carl worked so hard to bring people together who didn't necessarily always sit or play well together. Carl always managed to find what was most important for everyone to accomplish together. And I'm just so grateful for the way he built bridges, particularly among all of us elected officials. This is not an easy sandbox to play in. And Carl was always committed to making sure that people felt like they had an important role to play in doing something important. And so for that, I was willing to put up with all those years of bad dad jokes. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Mayor.
Rob?
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Carl. You've really made a difference in our valley. I know a lot of those measures would not have been brought home without you, and I know you worked extremely hard. And thank you, Leslie, for letting him work so hard. But I also think that there's a certain magic that you figured out to make it happen. Sam touched on some of it, being able to bring people together, but your use of the technology and the surveys, and there's some kind of magic in there that I think you have that other people will really struggle to put together and replicate. So I don't think it's just hard work. Thank you for that, but also thank you for the magic. And the thing I remember was when you handed out the little jars of jam that said traffic jam on them. So that was my little memory. So again, Carl, thank you for making a huge difference in this valley that would not have happened.
Thank you. Larry?
Thanks, Cindy. I just wanted to add my quick 2 cents too. One of the things I've learned from Carl over the years is just his focus on the success of the region is all of our success. That as a city council member, it's important for me to sort of drop my parochial tendencies because what's good for the region is good for all of our cities and our entire area. And that being said, I do want to, as the South County's representative, sort of claim Carl a little bit as well. He started his public service in South County, and I was reminded recently by Rusty Reyes that even the 101-25 interchange we have today was something that Carl brought to light when he was working for Rusty even before joining the leadership group. And so we're deeply indebted to Carl for many things across this great valley. But really, it's the success of the region as a whole that I will always remember. And that helps me in dropping my parochial interests as well and thinking about all of us. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Leslie, for sharing him with us.
Thank you. And thanks to my colleagues. We have a few speakers from the public. We're going to take those speakers and then I'll make some comments.
Okay, it looks like we have 4 speakers. Sorry about that. We've got 4 speakers. The first 3 will be Roland, Michael, and Reginald. Roland, I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for the record, I always got on absolutely superbly with Carl Gardino. There were never any personality problems. I think he's a superb individual. But having said that, I really want this board to focus and reflect on what happened to Measure A. Because 20 years later and $3.5 billion later, we finally delivered 10 miles of tracks, currently carrying 375 passengers a day. And right now we're at the point where we no longer have funds to meet our Caltrain obligations, or let alone run bus and light rail. 14 years later, Carl tried to pull the same stunt with the 2014 Measure B. We stopped it dead. And then we came up with the 2016 Measure B that actually made sense. In closing, Carl, I don't know what your next step is. If it's a fuel cell in every backyard, I wish you the best of luck, as long as it's not in the VTA's backyard. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Michael. I'm going to unmute you. Please accept the unmute and you may begin speaking when you're ready.
Michael, you're still muted. There you
Sorry.
go.
Hi, Carl, Chair, Carl Leslie, Michael Van Avery here. I just wanted to take this moment to thank you. I can't think of anyone maybe outside of the great Secretary and former Congressman Norman Y. Mineta who has delivered more for Santa Clara County, who's worked more tirelessly and more dedicated, especially to your hometown in San Jose, where you've just been a beacon of leadership for so many years. I've enjoyed being part of your work life now into the future. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the things that you've done for our great area. So congratulations to you and Leslie. And I hope that your next endeavor is as successful as the one you've done. Congratulations.
Thank you, Michael. Brian, I'm going to unmute you. Please accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
All right, thank you. So for the record, my name is Brian Prescott, and I'd like to thank the board of the VTA for inviting public comment. I'm here to speak to urge the board to vote aye on agenda item 7.5. Simply put, it is going to help us fund transit without taxes. For reference, this is the one with the naming rights by which the VTA can monetize bus and light rail stops. So I acknowledge the controversy when accepting corporate sponsors, but I think that this concern is somewhat small when we compare it to the importance of light rail and buses. Transit fights climate change, pulls cars off the road, and it's obviously less emissions per person mile traveled. It improves traffic, again, by pulling cars off the road, which saves everyone's time. And it's also an incredibly important pillar of economic mobility, which allows people to improve their own lives by their own actions if we kind of give them the infrastructure to do so. So thank you so much. Vote aye on 7.5.
I'm just going to remind our speakers that we're actually on item 2.1. So I'm sorry, item 2.2.
Thank you. Our next two speakers, our last two speakers will be Alex, followed by Adina. Alex, I'm going to unmute you. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Good evening. This is Alex Shore speaking personally, not on behalf of any organization for which I work or commission on which I sit. I think few people have done more outside of government for government service than Carl Guardino, and I'm so grateful for what you've done, Carl, for so long. I appreciate the deep partnership you've built with important government agencies like VTA and BART over the years to provide better transit service for our community, and wish you all the best. Thank you so much for everything you've done for our community. Working across divides to get stuff done has been really, really essential, and definitely someone that many of us in the community continue to look up to as we try to improve things for the better following your and VTA's legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Adina, I'm going to unmute you. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Good evening, board members. Adina Levin with Friends of Caltrain.
Adina, you muted yourself.
All right. Adina Levin wanting to express thanks to Carl Guardino for his energy and relentless pursuit of funding and support for public transportation in Silicon Valley and pursuit of infrastructure and the betterment of Silicon Valley. That level of energy will leave very large holes to fill. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to thank the public speakers, and I'm going to ask Nuri, our general manager, will have the second to the last word.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And everything has been said, but not all of us have said it. And I would like to thank Carl Guardino. Carl, you are just an extraordinary individual. I have worked in several parts of this country and have never encountered anyone as dedicated to infrastructure that was not in the infrastructure business. So thank you for recognizing the significance of having a good transportation network, not only the economic prosperity of a region or a place, but to the ability of people to get to the things that they need to get to. Because we are in the people business, people moving business, and you have just been an extraordinary partner in helping us locally and at the federal level. We will miss you in that direct role, but we know we can always call you or call upon you. And again, those two most important words in the English language, thank you.
So I'm going to just alert public speakers that if you want to speak on item 3, public comment, this would be the time to raise your hands and sign in. And Carl, we're going to play the video one more time as we're waiting for public speakers. But I just wanted to, on behalf of all of my colleagues, say a very, very special thank you to you and to Leslie. And I want to reiterate something that that Sam said and also Dave, and that is that I think that one of the most important characteristics of a leader is the ability to collaborate. And it's very difficult to do. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. And I don't think I know anybody in the Valley that I've received as many late night emails or texts, and then the next morning, as if you didn't sleep, they came again. And I think that both your work ethic and your willingness to sit down and listen to everybody who had a piece of a story of the Valley to tell, and figuring out a way to integrate that into one big vision that then you work to implement through any number of campaigns, and even through the turkey trot. If you think about all of the work that you've done, that single event that frankly that you and Leslie did together brings more people in our community together to do good than any other event I can think of. And that is really reflective of both of you. So thank you for your service. And I think they're going to play you out on this with music this time, so that I was going to call on Sam and see if he'd sing, but maybe it's better to see if the staff's music works. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are so blessed to have each of you in our lives. Just humbled. Thank you.
And you have 2 surprises coming. You'll just have to wait till they arrive at your house, but they're pretty awesome.
They did come. Can I show them? Yes. Did you want us to show them, or
Sure.
just
Go
enjoy?
ahead.
This one is a bobblehead bicyclist with a VTA shirt.
It's scary. It's so lifelike.
It is. It is. It's actually life size too. The second is this beautiful resolution that President Chavez read from earlier, and thank you so much. And the third one, that's our 4-year-old you hear in the background.
Hey, Jake.
I would have to back up, but it is a beautiful Guardino Station sign. My 4-year-old who loves trains would love to see up somewhere. This meant a lot to Jacob Zachary.
Thanks again, Carl.
Thank you so much. We love you all.
We're now going to move to item 3.
Thank you, Carl.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 is public comment, and I'm going to ask folks who'd like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda. And if you do speak to an item that is on the agenda, I'm going to ask that you only do it once for that particular item. And we'll invite our public speakers.
Thank you. It looks like we have, let's see, 2 speakers. I also would like to note that we did receive public comment from Mr. LeBrun, which was included in the packet and posted on the web. Our first 3 speakers will be Blair, Roland, and Alita. Blair, accept the unmute and speak when you're ready.
Hi, thank you. The city of San Jose, they're starting up their AV project, automated vehicle project again, and they are getting help and guidance from the VTA at this time. I wanted to thank the VTA in that a couple years ago in 2018, they presented a series of lectures from a Stanford professor that talked about AV uses and practices and an upcoming possible economic disruption process that I think really prepared all of us for kind of what we are going through right now. And I just really wanted to thank you for that sort of work and preparedness for all of us. And I hope as government and community, we work and do those kind of projects together again in the future with those kind of understandings. With 10 seconds, I really wanted to remind yourselves of the importance of the shot spotter technology at the BART station, new BART station in San Jose. It has to be questioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Blair, next we will have Roland speak. Begin to speak when you're ready.
Thanks again for the opportunity, Madam Chair. So I'd like to echo my written comments we have to do with governance and audit. On the governance issue, it's very difficult for members of the public to provide timely written comments if the material to be commented on is not uploaded to the website at least 24 hours before being presented to the board. But I guess to board members, it doesn't matter because all you have to do is to wait for a briefing call from Mr. Lawson. Moving on to Measure A, after 12 years, MGO, our general auditor, are refusing to provide a legal opinion that what happened to Measure A complies with what the voters and taxpayers of Santa Clara County voted for 20 years ago. So today, I'm respectfully requesting that the board direct VTA legal counsel to provide such an opinion one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 more speakers, Alita, followed by Jay. Alita, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Chavez and members. Alita Dupree for the record. My pronouns are she and her. It's good to be back with you again. Due to some recent work at the Metropolitan Transportation Commission meetings, I feel it's very important for this agency to get involved with Clipper Start. It's a program that advances equity and helps make transit more affordable. And VTA is fortunate to have your general manager, Nuria Fernandez, serving on the Clipper Executive Board. And so she has this very broad and global perspective on Clipper and on general leadership. I was watching some videos of the New York City subway and Grand Central Terminal. I thought about Nuria's tenure at the MTA in New York, reminding me of great subway rides on the number 2 and 3 fast rides. Listen to Nuria. She has a lot of good things to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker will be Jay. Please accept the unmute and begin speaking when you are ready.
Hello?
Yes? Okay.
You can move on.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm now going to move on to item 4. We have no public hearing, so that will move us to item 5. And these are the Citizens Advisory Chairperson's Report. And with that, for that, we have Marty Schulter, and he's here to provide a report. Welcome, Marty.
Thank you. I'm trying to undo my video. Okay. Good evening, Chairperson Chavez, Vice Chair Hendricks, General Manager Fernandez, and members of the board. At our August 12th meeting, the 2000 Measure A Citizens Watchdog Committee conducted the required annual public hearing on the results of the independent compliance audit for the 2000 Measure A revenue expenditures for fiscal year 2019. The CWC will evaluate the information and findings contained in the audit report and combine it with other information, reports, and data, including input from the public hearing to render conclusion on whether 2000 Measure A expenditures were spent in accordance with the intent of the ballot. I look forward to reporting the CWC's conclusion at a future board meeting. In other business, the CAC had a robust discussion on tonight's board regular agenda 7.6, which is the 2016 Measure B Bicycle and Pedestrian Planning Studies Competitive Grant Criteria. The committee ultimately recommended this item for the board approval with changes to the point distribution for criteria 1, 3, and 5, and a summary of the comments is noted on the memo in your packet. And that actually concludes my report. If there are any questions.
Thank you. Let me see. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, we have one public comment on item 5.1.
Okay, very good. Roland, I'm going to mute you. Speak when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, I really appreciate Mr. Schulter's intention to report on the 2000 Measure A proceedings at some time in the future. First thing I'd like to bring to your attention, this report actually pertains to 2019. So it's unclear to me why it takes over a year to audit what happened to Measure A. We have actually got all the material we need for 2020 right now. The other thing I'd like to ask you, Madam Chair, is to consider reporting back on what happened to Measure A at the 17th workshop meeting so that we can reflect and then take appropriate decisions moving forward as to how we're going to be able to continue providing basic transportation services in Santa Clara County. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. We're going to move on to item, thank you, Marty. Really appreciate you being here. On our 5.2, the Policy Advisory Committee Chair report is available in the online packet. On item 5.3, the Governance and Audit Committee met earlier today and discussed the amendment of the fiscal year 2021 Auditor General internal audit work and increasing the purchasing authority of the General Manager. We also discussed board governance and enhancement items. The other standing committee chair reports are available in the online packet. Blair, would you like to speak to this item?
Okay, Blair, I'm going to unmute you. Begin speaking when you are ready.
Yeah, I would. I wrote a speech about, governance issues into the 21st, into 2021. It's going to be a tough fall for the VTA. You're going to have a bunch of decisions to make. I hope you can be open to all budget decision ideas. And I feel that should really include no fare transit ridership ideas. The work at the state level and the federal level, I think, really has to be re-examined at this time. And we're going to be in a 2-year period with COVID issues. I hope we can really respect what's being worked on at the state level. The ideas of housing, rent and owner forgiveness, tenant and owner forgiveness has been incredible work by Ash Kalra and others around the Bay Area. There's an open-mindedness and a good thinking, and I think that it can help no fair ridership ideas for a year or two, and many other budget ideas this fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Roland?
Roland, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you. And very briefly, apologies to those who were at GNA. The meeting started with an entirely inappropriate presentation by the general auditor, basically asking for half $500,000 worth of services. And I really appreciate Chair Chavez actually, reacting to what happened there and making sure that this doesn't happen again, whereby these kinds of requests should be going to VTA staff who will analyze them and present them back to the committee or to the board accordingly. Thank you.
So we'll move to item, John McAllister on item 5.3.
5.4.
Oh, great. Thank you. The chairperson's report from the SR 85 corridor and Deer Dawn Joint Policy Advisory Boards are available in the packet. And I believe the SR 85 PAB chair, John McAllister, drum roll please, is going to say a few words.
Thank you. I just want to put a little context to this report. It pretty much sums up what we did, but when it said multi-years, this actually started in 2015 with Measure B, and we have to thank Carl. Carl has his fingers on this project too, because it was negotiated between the quarter of people on 85, and Carl was able to bring everybody together and collaborate and arrange some funding for this particular road to take care of the congestion along 85. So it's amazing where his influence came. The board, as the memo says, that we did come to a conclusion and a final recommendation. We feel it is the most efficient, economical, cost-wise, and it's in the spirit of Measure B about making this a transit corridor. And we came to the conclusion that we agreed unanimously that we wanted a dedicated transit lane through there, and that it would allow for current technology, future technology, public-private partnerships, everything that could come down the pike. But this would be a very flexible use. Definitely would be involved having public transit down this line. And so I just wanted to thank staff for 5 years. Multiple people have come and gone on this. Many of you, some of you are on the board right now. So everybody had quite a bit of influence over the years. And it, particularly the last group of board members, we came to it. But thanks for everybody that were involved in this. You will see me champion this through the CMPP. You'll see me October 1st talking about this and how it can be very successful. In March, we had a board meeting and we were talking about innovation. And here's a vehicle that VTA can be very innovative about and how we use this transit lane. And I'm just excited to, again, make the recommendation. And I was very grateful that the Capital Program Committee, especially with Glenn Hendricks, he summed it up very beautiful. I couldn't have done a better job. And his vision was very broad and very accurate as we go forward. So that hopes gives you a little context, and thank you.
All right, so that's item 5.4. We have 3 speakers on the item.
Yes, the speakers are Eugene, Blair, and Roland. Eugene, please accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Evening, board members. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Eugene Bradley. I'm the founder and CEO of the Silicon Valley Transit Users. While this is a noble idea to have a dedicated public transit lane along Highway 85, Silicon Valley's new Silicon Valley's highway through the west side, one of the concerns come up, and that is there was supposed to be a bikeway that was supposed to be built as part of in several nearby areas, in particular areas around South San Jose that have minority populations that's not being properly addressed. Myself and a colleague had addressed this as part of MTC Resolution 3765. We've not gotten a response, so it's concerning that we're building this brand new lane. While it's great for public transit and even for the private vehicles, we're leaving out just more of these minority communities in this time where really there's been a lot of
After the free.
minority issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Blair?
Blair, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, I would like to note that I think in the past month there's been funding within the VTA of superhighway bicycle and pedestrian projects. Maybe that can tie into what the previous speaker is trying to ask about. For this item, I just wanted to quickly offer that in all the budget funding issues this fall, good luck in trying to keep to good standards about the Green New Deal. I know your highway funding and your highway work is an important concept to the VTA, and I feel it's very much tied into your revenue sources. And I know that you're considering how to be more, I don't know, conservative about the use of highway projects. And that has to be an important concept for ourselves, I feel, and good luck in those efforts. And with this item, thank you.
Roland?
Thank you. Roland, begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you. So very briefly, with regards to a comment made one of the other speakers, when I look at equity, there is nothing that says that Cupertino should have Teslas and these sites should have BRT. And my last final comment, if anybody wishes to thank Roland for his role in securing funding for Highway 85, I will personally not hold it against you. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. We do have one more speaker.
Fine.
Phone number ending in 8653.
Unmute yourself, JP. Go ahead.
Hello, this is John Pospashek. I'm the Vice President of AQ 265. I had one topic that I wanted to discuss with the board. I just want them to make them aware that our members are not getting hard copies of their paychecks. And so this is a big topic. VTA is trying to force them into getting online copies of their paychecks. We have many members that aren't able to get get the online copies. They need hard copies. Pre-COVID, they were able to get hard copies. I just want to make sure that they are able to get them. So please address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. And this will take us from item 6.1 through 6.5. And members of the public who want to address us on a consent item, this is a time to raise your hand. I'm going to have Evelyn make a brief comment, and then I'm going to ask for a motion, and then before we'll ask for a motion, we'll go to public comment and then come back to the board.
Evelyn? Thank you. Yes, I'm noting for the official record on behalf of Chairperson Chavez and Board Member Cortese that they serve on both the County Board of Supervisors and the VTA Board, and therefore under Government Code Section 1091.5A9, they have non-interest in the contract that is at issue for item 6.3 and are not required to recuse themselves from that item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna go to the public, then I'm gonna come back to the board.
Thank you, Chair. I would also like to note that we did receive written comment from Mr. Mark Antonio with public advocates on agenda item 6.9. And and that is on the website. We have two speakers, Eugene and Blair. Eugene, accept the unmute and speak when you're ready.
Hi, this is Eugene from the Silicon Valley Transit Users. Quick comment regarding item 6.2. Would VTA, as Gillig seems to be the only real supplier for their own parts, while I recognize that Gillig is based nowadays in Livermore, VTA might want to also consider other bus manufacturers to get new buses and parts like Proterra or New Flyer. These companies may have more flexible aftermarket parts manufacturers that can help them at least help reduce costs. That's something to consider. Also, can I make a quick comment on 6.9, or if not, I could wait until that particular item comes up.
Go ahead. Go ahead. It's on consent right now.
All right. My comment on item 6.9, the biggest thing from what I've seen with the Bay Area Healthy Transit Plan, it recommends 3 feet for separation for people. According to state law, the law still says you have to go by 6 feet. I recognize that there's a controversy between the World Health Organization and the CDC regarding this. Even the World Health Organization says you must obey the local ordinance, and that local ordinance is 6 feet. So let's.
Thank you. Blair, Monica, and then Roland.
Thank you. Blair, I'm unmuting you. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, to talk about item 6.3, it's housing issues. It's the funding of VTA involvement in housing development. And this is an interesting item to me. I'm really interested in the concept of how we continue our good practices pre and post COVID-19. And pre-COVID practices, I think there was a real groundswell towards the ideas of what could be mixed income housing and the ideas of very low income and extremely low income housing. How can those be just a regular part of our vocabulary, and that we talk about those sorts of projects in communities or for communities? And how can that language just be more regular? And, you know, so you're doing a lot of work and efforts. I know groups in San Jose are at this time as well, leadership groups. Good luck in how to continue good practices that we're starting pre-COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica, I'm going to unmute you. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Monica Mallon, and I'm speaking on item 6.9, which is the Healthy Transit Plan resolution. Really want to thank you all for doing everything you did to help protect us early on, like implementing rear door boarding and enhanced cleaning, and recently leading the Bay Area by providing hand sanitizer and masks on board. I think this resolution is a good first step, but I think that it's also important for VTA to create a new implementation plan and have it adopted by the board. The MTC plan is still pretty vague, and some of the items in it are not consistent with our county public health orders here. And I would also like to encourage you to use the CARES Act funding for health and safety if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Roland, I'm going to unmute you. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you. So I'd very briefly like to follow up on the point that Eugene made. I was actually at the MTC board meeting when this came up. The executive director's testimony took an hour and a half. Every single union was there protesting the 3-foot distancing and basically saying that if it was enforced, they would shut down their own systems. And they were every single VTA union was represented there. So I don't understand how this could be on a consent today. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is that in today's Chronicle, BART has started testing, providing free testing for people who ride on BART. They are now finding that 11% of Latinos are infected with COVID versus 9% for the rest of the population. And trying to get people to get onto that system with 3-foot distancing is not just irresponsible, it is flat criminal. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we do have 2 more people wishing to speak. Would you like to allow them to speak?
Thank you. We're going to take Hoi An and then Alita, and that'll be the last speaker on this item.
Thank you. Hoi An, I'm going to unmute you. accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Are you able to accept the unmute? Perhaps, oh, go ahead.
Hi. Sorry, I thought I clicked it and it didn't go, but I'm Wyan Trung with Mothers Out Front. I am a transit writer and live in San Jose. I'm totally in favor of item 6.8. It will begin to rectify the current chronic underfunding of public transit for most of the past 20 years and the broken promises of Measure A. I urge you to work on signal preemption and dedicated transit lanes and anything else that will help in increasing and speed up bus trips. We are in a climate emergency. We must shift our priorities from highway expansion to transit operations and create a world-class Bay Area-wide transit system. Thank you for your dedication during these difficult times.
Thank you. Alita, I'm going to unmute you, accept the unmute, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Chavez and members. Alita Dupree for the record. Concerning the Healthy Transit Program, I have attended these various proceedings. There's a lot in this document. I'm sure you've all gotten to read it, and I think it is worthy of your support. It's not a perfect document, and it is a beginning, definitely not an end, as we learn more things along the way. You know, healthy transit requires us to take action. And so healthy transit is safe, timely, and affordable. I think it's reasonable that this item was placed on consent. And so I ask you to pass this so we can begin the work of building a better VTA. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all of our public speakers. We're now going back to the board for action. And I'm going to go to Glenn.
I was ready to make a motion that we accept the consent calendar.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Bob Nunez. Motion and a second. Any more discussion on the motion? May I ask for a roll call vote?
Carr,
Aye.
Carrasco is absent. Cortese,
Aye.
Dieppe,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo,
Aye.
McAllister,
Yes.
Nunez,
Yes.
Perales,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Chavez.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. I'm going to move to item 7.1, and this is taking us to our regular agenda. I will let you know that I've asked the staff to refine their reports to 5 minutes. That way we could have more conversation. I'm also going to just mind each of us to be mindful of each other's time as well. So if you can make sure you're ready with your question when I call upon you, would be great. So this first item is a Silicon Valley Rapid Transit Program update. Any members of the public who wish to speak on item 7.1, this would be the time to raise your hand. I'm going to have Takis give the presentation. We'll go to public comment and then back to the board for discussion. So with that, I'm going to turn it over.
Madam Chair, I'm here. Good evening. I will spend 2 minutes to tell you about phase one. You can see on my presentation, Elaine, page 3, please. Page 3. As you can see, we are almost done with the punch list. I think this will be my almost final report. I'm planning to come in front before you in October to tell you there are not more punch list items. And we are approaching the closeout of the project. Elaine, next page, please. As we do every month, this is the financial report with a final forecast. No more costs are we anticipate any cost. We still maintain 45 million net savings, and most likely this will be the last report I present to you next month. On page 5, Elaine, as I told you before, in September this month, we're gonna close one more contract. And next month, when I'm before you, I will tell you that I'm optimistic that we're gonna close the last contract. Having said all this, the project will be completely closed out except the two items which are part of litigation. Whereas as far as the engineers, project managers concerned, I am very optimistic that coming before you in October, I will tell you we are at closeout. And that's my presentation on phase one. Elaine, on phase two, you asked us to be prepared to have a follow-up discussion, a very brief discussion of the conversation we had back on the Capital Programs Committee on August 27. It has to do with the potentiality, the possibility of having entrances to the downtown San Jose station from the south side. Elaine, next page. The summary I presented to you, and we had a lengthy discussion, is you can cross from the south to the north side by crossing the street, of course, mitigated, fully mitigated, safety, meet all the requirements, pedestrian crossing. You can go above the street on an aerial bridge. We have issues to address there. We have right-of-way issues, environmental considerations. Definitely we have cost and potential schedule implications. And the last concept we discussed was to go below the street. And again, we have similar issues. Right-of-way impacts, environmental considerations, and definitely cost. Next page, Elaine. I presented to you the evaluation metrics, and we had a short discussion and on this. And you asked me to come back this time and present it to you again and allow you to do your discussion and provide us with the direction for us to follow. That's my presentation for that item. And to complete on phase two, I'm on page 11 now. Elaine, next page. We are following, as you know, on July 28th, the Federal Transit Administration circulated and distributed the notice of funding opportunity, which is really the federal requirements for how we're going to apply for EPD. They put us officially under a project management oversight, and we submitted every document they asked us, 23 documents, and there are two issues which we're dealing right now to satisfy the requirement. One is the public-private partnership contract, or if you like it, agreement with Google, which you...
Excuse me, Chair, can we ask them to go back a slide? Because I think he's talking about the prior slide.
That's it. That's where I am. Thank you, Mr. Hendricks.
Thanks, Bud.
Yeah, thank you for that. The point I was making here was there are two issues now which remain to be resolved between us and the FTA. One is the public-private partnership agreement with Google, and the other is to transform the FTA to FTA's format, the trip tables and the estimates for ridership VTA did prior to the requirements by the FTA. That's the two issues. I think within this month, we will be very close to finish that. And going to my last page, on page 12, is the schedule. And you have seen that a few times before. What I wanted to share with you is that before the next meeting, I am very confident that the RFI, or if you like it, the request for industry feedback, the one which we're reaching out to the contracting community for both the systems contract and the tunnel, it will be on the street in order to create the environment within the contracting community to start creating the competition. And we are all for a good competition. And that's my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the public and then I will come back to the board for additional comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I call on public, I'd like to remind everyone that we did receive written public comment from David Vieira, which has been posted on the website as part of the packet. And going on to the public who's here, looks like we have 4 speakers: Roland, Eugene, Alita, and Blair. Roland, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is a superb cover-up. I mean, there's no two ways about it. The slides that were shown at the CPC showing the funding are not here. Phase 1 is 20 years late. 20 years, 3.5 billion years later, we're carrying 375 passengers. The slides were showing cost estimates up 2.2 billion since last year, now $6.9 billion, including an additional $1 billion for Measure A on top of last year's $1 billion. Where are we going to find $2 billion in Measure A? The southern entrances to the station and the sequel, you cannot do this. You cannot piecemeal half a station, deliver the rest of the station later. And by the way, the 2 cut and cover emergency structures have not been environmentally cleared either. With regards to the Norfolk, there's no funding available above the existing $225 million, and the VTA have been told to reapply for the first $100 million with 30% design. Thank you.
Eugene, I'm going to unmute you. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Evening once again, board members. This is Eugene. Just going back to one of the slides regarding the entrances to what looks like the Santa Clara Street station. It's concerning that there's only really one main entrance. Even a cursory look through Google Maps of the Montgomery Street BART station reveals that that station, as well as all the stations in San Francisco, have at least 4 entrances. Why is it this need to have this one sole station just to satisfy some need for San Jose to be unique, like to help to stand out from San Francisco? This is not a very good design to have just one grand entrance for a subway station that BART is. For safety's sake, what happens if something happens where that one entrance is closed? That's going to cause a lot of issues when they could have easily been having at least multiple entrances. You can have at least your grandstand, but at least have more than one entrance and exit to a subway such as BART. That's how cities around the world build subway stations. I echo also Roland's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Alita, accept the unmute and you may begin speaking when you're ready.
Oh, we're having a problem here. Chair Chavez and members, Alita Dupree for the record. Good presentation. I'm looking forward to the closeout of phase 1. I mean, this is visionary, and someday we're going to move past this crisis, and we're going to have a system that's going to help a lot of people. I'm looking forward to using this phase 1 to get to San Jose. It'll save me a lot of time. Concerning phase 2, I support the option 3, which offers the underground mezzanine to get from one side of the street to the other. That's very common in New York City, to be able to cross under the street. And many stations in New York City are 2 levels, including the largest one in the world, Grand Central Terminal, which has an upper and a lower level. And we need to build BART to Santa Clara with a station to ensure a 1-seat ride to Santa Clara. Thank you.
Thank you. Blair, I'm going to unmute you. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, thank you. My idea should be to build the BART in downtown along St. John Street. And that way, while you're building it, it won't take away, from the businesses along Santa Clara. Once it's done, you can close off the street to traffic, and it can be bicycle traffic only. And it'd just be a nice way to work, be half a block to Santa Clara Street. I like the idea of the station being on the street level, or else to have a way you can walk underneath to cross the street to avoid injuries. And it's also earthquake safe. And with 16 seconds, You're working on the idea of possibly talking about the sports arena as a possible BART station, maybe. How do we do that responsibly and safely for everyone to understand and think about? Thank you.
Thank you. This is an informational item. I'm now going to go to the board to see if there are any comments or questions. Mr. McAllister?
Yeah, quick question about the entrance to the subway on phase 2. How is that going to be funded? Was that going to be a private-public partnership? Was that going to be other entities involved with paying for that?
I'm not, Takis, do you want to respond to that, or would you like someone else to?
Nuria, the general manager should respond to that.
Okay.
Of course, the general manager should respond to that because no, we don't have any funding. This is, we committed to bringing back some schematics as to what may be possible. It has not been fully developed as a scope. There is no cost estimate that's specific. What would need to happen next once we bring this back to the Capital Program Committee is if it's a project, then a decision on the funding source would have to be made. But at this point, there is no funding for this.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I'm going to move us on to items 7.2 and 7.3. And as mentioned earlier, we're hearing these. Oh, Raul, was this on the item we were just talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I was late on raising my hand.
No problem. Go ahead.
I was just, I appreciate staff's report out on that. And as we had asked for them to return with some of those options. And for me, I think, we certainly have been talking about that and the opportunity of being able to have that a transfer, whether aerial or underground, and just appreciate having that opportunity. I think I want to be able to create the best options possible and look forward to being able to hopefully choose one of those options in the near future.
Thank you. We'll move on to items 7.2 and 7.3. Just as a reminder, under orders of the day, we decided that we were going to hear these together. These items were reviewed by the Administration and Finance Committee. So Larry, Carr, would you like to introduce these items?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Chavez. Appreciate it. The Administration and Finance Committee met on August 20th. We forwarded several items on tonight's regular agenda, as well as items that were already approved on the consent calendar. The first item before us is 7.2 and 7.3. As the chair said, we're going to hear them together. They're both phase 2 related. Item 7.2 is to authorize the general manager to amend contract S16140 with WSP USA Inc. to support development and presentation to the Federal Transit Administration for VTA's BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 project. Item 7.3 is to authorize the general manager to amend contract S15037 with Ernst & Young Infrastructure Advisors, LLC, to support development and implementation of public-private partnerships, private funding, and value capture funding solutions for VTA's BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 project. The full staff recommendation, including amounts, are on your screen. The A&F committee did have some questions on these items, which staff responded to, and summaries of our brief discussions are noted in the staff report. The A&F committee did recommend board approval for these items. Raj and Michael are here tonight to provide a brief presentation. Raj?
Thank you, Board Member Carr. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask Michael Smith, who's got a brief presentation on these two items, to quickly summarize the discussion. Michael?
Okay, hopefully you can hear me and see me.
We can.
This presentation requests the addition of value for 2 ongoing contracts in 7.2 and 7.3. Contracts are with WSP and Ernst & Young Infrastructure Advisors. Each firm fulfills a specific requirement of the grant application process under the Expedited Project Delivery Program that's being pursued for BART Phase 2 funding. WSP fulfills the requirement to have an independent advisor provide financial report indicating whether VTA has the financial capacity to build and operate the Phase 2 project. WSP has been providing this service since working on the application for the BART Phase 1 full funding grant agreement and is currently finalizing the report for BART Phase 2. However, additional funding is needed to complete the report and to support the effort that will be required during the FTA review process. We'll go to the next slide. Ernst & Young fulfills the requirement that VTA have an advisor for its public-private partnership component that is a required element under the EPD program. Ernst & Young has been providing advisory services related to BART Phase 2 funding since 2015 and needs additional funding to continue development and implementation of the P3 program and to support transit-oriented joint development, as well as refining and implementing other Phase 2 funding alternatives. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Vice Chair Hendricks, and the chair has asked me to take over for a couple minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and go to public comments. This would be public comments on 7.2 or 7.3.
Thank you. Before we get started with the public comment, wanted to note that on item 7.2, we received public comment from Roland LeBrun, which has been posted on the website. And it looks like we've got two speakers, Roland and Blair. Roland, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you. This is Roland. So I have got absolutely no problems with 7.3. Please vote on that, no issue. The real problem is 7.2. Now, I appreciate you're busy. You don't have time to read a complete staff report. So let me just explain to you in 30 seconds what's going on here. You're basically going to give Parsons Brinckerhoff $250,000 to go to Washington to lobby for $1.3 billion in professional services, which, by the way, are going to go right back to HNTB Parsons Brinckerhoff. So I cannot see you right now, but I cannot believe that the stench here is so strong that I'm not seeing any of you basically, pinching your noses because you can't breathe anymore. I am absolutely opposed to this. I want you to rebid this and actually have some other company taking over the lobbying in Washington. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. To our next speaker.
Yes. Blair, I've unmuted you. Begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi. To try to elaborate on my last words from my previous comment, it's my understanding that there's been some serious parking issues with the sports arena area, and that there's been a lot of internal talk about building a sports arena over at the Earthquake Stadium or in the Spartan Stadium area. I've now learned about these things. I'm trying to report this now and try to be, my good, honest self to explain what I'm learning and hearing. I imagine you're trying to work on ways to make this a more public understanding of what the future of the sports arena could be. How can we work together to make it just understood what a concept can be for BART to arrive there in the future? And I'll be interested in how that can work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I see that's the last speakers we have. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close the public speaker section, and I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any questions about 7.2, 7.3. Director Carr.
I'm ready to make a motion when you're ready, Vice Chair.
I think we're ready.
I would move approval of items 7.2 and 7.3.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay.
Bob.
That was Bob.
Yep.
So with that, could we please vote?
All right, this is for items 7.2 and 7.3. Motion by Carr, seconded by Nunez. Carr.
Aye.
Carrasco is absent. Cortese.
Aye.
Dieppe.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Ricardo.
Aye.
McAllister,
Yes.
Nunez,
Yes.
Peralez,
Aye.
Rennie,
Aye.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Chavez.
Yes.
All right,
Thank
thank you. And
you.
I think we'll pass the baton back to the chair.
Thank you, Glenn. Just as a reminder, 7.4 was deferred under orders of the day. So we'll now move to item 7.5. This is the superlative group contract for implementation of naming rights, the naming rights sales program. So I'm going to ask the staff, I think, Larry, do you want to introduce this one too?
Sure, I can do it very briefly, Madam Chair. As the chair said, this is a contract amendment with a superlative group to increase the contract by up to 1.7 million for implementation of a naming rights sales program for VTA assets for a 5-year amendment term with an option to extend for an additional 4 years. The ANF committee recommended this item for board approval on a vote of 3 ayes and 1 no. We requested a report back on the progress after 1 year, and we put this item for board action. Ron Golan, Director of Real Estate and Transit-Oriented Development, is here to provide a brief report. Ron?
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Also joining me via Zoom is Louise Peter. Louise is VTA's Management Analyst for Advertising and Sponsorships, as well as Kyle Cantor from the Superlative Group. What we'd like to do is share the results of a study to look at the potential for naming rights prepared by the Superlative Group. And this action then is to ask to implement that program. When we talk about naming rights, we're really talking about organizational sponsorship of revenue generating activities that use VTA transit assets. And so what this effort is really seeking to generate new revenues for VTA. And in a moment, I'll turn it over to Louise. I would just like to note that in the packet is a much longer explanation of the subject, as well as the executive summary of the report prepared by the Superlative Group, as well as VTA's naming rights and advertising policy approved by the Board of Directors. That is the framework for how this would work. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Louise to talk you through the presentation.
Thank you, Ron. So I think we're on the right slide. So many of us, oh, sorry, one back, please. Thank you. Most of us are familiar with naming rights when it comes to sporting and entertainment venues, but naming rights have really entered into the transit agency arena in the last 10 years. I've shared a few examples on the slide of some of the naming rights programs with transit agencies so you have a better understanding of the marketable value. For transit agencies like VTA, it allows us to draw significant revenue from existing assets. And for private corporations, it allows them to showcase their involvement with the community, public transportation, and really showcase just their general social responsibility. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So in 2019, VTA issued a naming rights RFP to inform on potential revenue and requirements for a naming rights program. It took a 2-phase approach. So the first phase was to understand our assets and what their values are so that we can understand whether or not to move forward with a decision to implement a sales program. And phase 2 would be the implementation of that program to market and sell naming rights to VTA assets. So the contract was awarded to the Superlative Group, who had the highest ranked proposal and has a long track record for selling naming rights for transit agencies. And they began their study in January of this year. The Superlative Group report revealed that yes, in fact, VTA assets are valuable and can generate significant revenue, that our assets and properties are not only highly visible to our ridership, but also to vehicle and foot traffic. And another interesting point is that in-kind sponsorships can be another valuable form of naming rights that while not increasing revenue, it can help offset operational costs. If you could go to the next slide, please. So I've included on this slide some examples of VTA assets and their estimated value. As Ron mentioned, we've also included an executive summary with the board packet, so you can find more detail about the valuations there. But the Superlative Group projects sales to be $7.5 million over the proposed 5-year term. And therefore, staff, we seek authorization to amend the agreement so that we can begin selling naming rights to these assets. Next slide, please. So the marketing and sales program, what that means is we would engage the superlative group for a 5-year period. And what that would allow the superlative group to do is establish a team to research and identify prospective corporations, develop presentation material, marketing and sales collateral, negotiate complete agreements. There's a much longer list. I won't go into all of that. You can go to the next slide, please. So we'll talk about the compensation structure. So again, we're seeking authorization for $1 million for the sales implementation program. That's for a 2-year retainer at $12,500 a month, a 15% commission on the projected sales. So I hope you understand this is an incentive-based compensation structure. VTA's risk is limited to the 2-year retainer payment totaling $300,000. $1.7 million would go to the superlative group only if naming rights deals signed for that $7.5 million projection. The retainer, again, as I mentioned, the retainer payment is only for 2 years, and that's when the sort of heavy lifting of the development, staff development, research for prospective corporations, and the development of marketing materials takes place. So beyond the 2 years, VTA is not responsible for paying a retainer. So again, last, I just want to make sure VTA only has $300,000 at risk for this program, and the 1.7 is based upon superlative group reaching and exceeding their sales projection, which we fully expect them to do. Next slide, please.
So I think just to sum up the recommendation, and just to clarify, I'd like to add that any naming rights contract that is above the general manager's contract limit will be coming back to the board of directors for approval. So the recommendation we're presenting is for the board to authorize a contract amendment for up to $1.7 million to implement the naming rights sales program for a 5-year term with the 4-year option if we are successful and wish to continue. We're making this recommendation because we believe it can generate substantial new revenue of $7.5 million. And with success, we think there's actually potential for considerably more new revenue in the long term. And with that, we'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the public speakers, and then I'll come back to the board for questions and comments and action.
Thank you. It looks like we have 10 people wanting to speak. The first 3 will be Kevin, Daniel, and Juan. Kevin just left. Daniel, I'm going to unmute you, accept the unmute, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Daniel Hun. I'm an SJSU student with Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action. Over the course of these last months with the coronavirus ongoing and funds low, we have debated over if we should cut essential transfer. But now, here before us, a light of hope, a way to ensure our essential workers, frontline doctors, nurses, and those hit hard by the virus can get to the places they need to be to keep their jobs or to look for better ones. A way to ensure a cleaner environment for the next generation. A way to reduce the tragic traffic accidents like the one that just happened on Santa Clara Street near my old route to school. For all, VTA with this item will get money from business to fund transit, and the only catch is that it has to be named a route after safe business. In addition to these, in fact, this you already said yourself, this item will generate millions of dollars just in the first year. So please, I urge you, all of you, to vote yes on item 7.5 because it will generate revenue to help save transit at little to no cost to VTA. It's a no-brainer, basically free money, closest thing VTA can get to a free lunch. Sorry for going over.
Thank you. Hoyan, I'm going to unmute you, accept the unmute, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Wayan Trong with Mothers Out Front. I'm afraid of deep budget cuts, which will render public transit very unusable. I'm afraid for essential workers who make up over 30% of transit riders in the Bay Area who have no other means to get to work. I'm afraid for the 80% of riders who are people of color who have no other means to get to work and to essential services. I'm afraid service cuts could cause up to 60 to 70,000 more people to buy cars, which will increase greenhouse gases and traffic. This would be disastrous for our climate goals that could take years to reverse. Our young people's future cannot wait. I urge you to vote yes on item 7.5 because it would generate revenue to help save transit. I urge VTA to make every possible effort to avoid service cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 10 speakers, Madam Chair. Next 3 will be Alex, Alexis, and Eugene. Alex, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hey again, VTA board. This is Alex Shore speaking on behalf of myself personally, not on behalf of the organization for which I work or commission on which I sit. I just want to thank you so much to staff and the board for your consideration of this important agenda item tonight. You know better than we do that the revenue is needed for the agency to continue to fund essential transit services, which are so important in our community. And we thank you so much for continuing to provide them. Take care.
Thank you. Alexis, I'm going to unmute you, accept the unmute, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Alexis. I'm 14 years old and I attend Santa Clara High School. I'm part of Turnout for Transit and SBYCA. I urge you to approve item 7.5 because it would generate revenue to help preserve transit. Transit is important to stopping climate change, and with the increase in fires in the area every year, it's clear that climate change is relevant now and we need to take action to stop it. Thank you for listening to me, and please approve item 7.5.
Thank you, Alexis. Next 3 speakers will be Eugene, Perry, and Jeffrey. Eugene, I'm going to unmute you, accept the unmute, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Evening, board members. This is Eugene again. Can everybody hear me? Hello? Can
Yes.
everybody hear me?
Go ahead, Eugene.
Yes, I urge VTA board to support this action item. A couple of examples where naming rights have been rather successful. In Cleveland, they have a bus rapid transit line from downtown Cleveland to the suburbs known as the Health Line. And also in Denver, they just opened a brand new electrified commuter rail line from their downtown to the airport that is named after the University of Colorado. So this program, having naming rights, if done properly, can generate VTA some of the money it's going to need to at least stave off some of these projected service cuts. Unfortunately, it seems there will be numerous total, but I'll address that in a separate action item. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. Perry, I'm going to unmute you. Please accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Good evening, my name is Perry and I'm a rising junior at Homestead High School. I live in Sunnyvale and I'm here with the Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action Transit Team with Turnout for Transit. According to the UN IPCC report, in 10 years, the worst effects of climate change will be irreversible. This year, 2020, is not a horrendous year because it was fated to be that way. On the contrary, if we don't combat climate change now, 2021 and 2022 and every year following may be just as terrifying. For this reason and more, please vote yes on item 7.5 to generate revenue and help save transit. Thank you.
Thank you, Perry. Next speaker will be Jeffrey. Please accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey. I'm a student at Evergreen. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but also my family for whom English is not their primary language as immigrants. So my uncle and cousin rely on transit because they are unable to drive. My cousin, who just came to the US, does not have a driver's license, and my uncle is unable to because of a vision problem. Having said that, never before has VTA services ever been so essential to my family, but also so many families like ours in San Jose. I urge the board to vote in favor of item 7.5 in order to preserve these essential services to the well-being of so many residents of our county and city. Doing so, not only will this generate a lot of money for us, it is a way that it's a sustainable way of doing so without taxing our already stressed and burdened residents.
Thank you. Our next three speakers will be Monica, Natasha, and Blair. Monica, I'm going to unmute you, accept the unmute, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Monica Mallon, and I'm part of Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action and Turnout for Transit. And like all the other speakers, I want to encourage you all to support this item. This is something that's going to help generate revenue for VTA without increasing taxes. And this is something that's especially really helpful during this financial crisis where every single dollar does count. Obviously, this won't be enough to completely preserve all service, but this is going to be a stable revenue source that's going to help right now and in the future. So I really want to thank staff for all their work on this. Please support this and please look into more monetization opportunities in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Next speaker will be Natasha. Please accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi there, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Natasha Gagul, and I'm a lifelong resident of the South Bay. I'm here with Turnout for Transit, as well as the Latino Community Foundation. Transit is super important to me and my family because we use it to get around the entire Bay Area. We've been here for multiple generations, and it's essential to the way that we live and work. We also are so concerned about the ongoing climate crisis that we're in the middle of, that we're seeing with the horrible condition of our air recently, with all the fires, with everything that's continuing to happen and will continue to happen in California due to climate change, which is only exacerbated by cars. So in order to fund the essential transit that we all are talking about today, I urge you to vote yes on item 7.5, because it would, like Monica said, generate a steady revenue stream that's expandable. If we ever reach Los Gatos, where my parents and I live, with Vasona Junction, there's an expandable opportunity there for branding. It'll help generate revenue to save transit and just make it more accessible for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Blair, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, thank you. I really liked the words of Eugene speaking on this item. You know, if you're going to do this project, do it well and do it right. And I think the mayor of San Jose has mentioned he's worried about Chick-fil-A being advertised. I myself am worried that Lockheed Martin is going to advertise on VTA Transit. I find advertising a little garish and uncomfortable, but I understand there's needs of revenue, and you know, I hope we can look, you know, at all ideas this fall. And what I tried to suggest earlier, we really look at state and federal funding ideas at this time, and to help us consider, and things may not be so bad, but good luck in your decisions with this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. We have three more speakers. William, Vivian, and Tiffany. William, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is William Tang. I'm from Evergreen, and I'm with the Young Democratic Socialists of America over here. And I'd like for you to vote to protect our public transit, to generate more revenue sources for our public transit in these unprecedented, terrifying times. And especially with all the fires going around, we should be especially aware of the climate crisis right now and how it's affecting us. And public buses are going to be necessary for any future infrastructure that we can use that won't like pollute the environment and make life unlivable. So we should be doing everything that we can to protect public buses, to protect public transit. And so I urge you to vote yes on measure 7.5. I yield the rest of my time to the chair.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we did have someone else who would like to speak. Are you going to allow them and then cut off public comment?
We'll end public comment after Dugat Luca. Thank you.
Thank you. Vivian, go ahead and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Vivian. I'm here with Turnout for Transit and Silicon Valley DSA, and I'm a resident of South San Jose. I've basically grown up in San Jose my whole life, and public transit has been really vital to myself and my friends who often, because we're very young, we don't have cars, and transit has enabled us to really get around the city and, explore all that San Jose has to offer, which is why I support, voting yes on Measure 7.5, and I really urge you to vote yes on Measure 7.5 today. As so many people have already said, we're facing a looming climate crisis that has disastrous consequences for California, as we've seen with the recent wildfires. And public transit is a really effective way to fight fossil fuel emissions and, in turn, climate change. So, yeah, I urge you to vote yes on Measure 7.5. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Tiffany, I'm going to unmute you. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Tiffany. I'd like to remain anonymous with the organization that I'm with. I think it's excellent that you are looking at additional reliable funding sources. I would just say to be considerate of maybe looking at different pricing structures for institutions versus tech companies in the Bay Area. As you know, many universities and colleges are also facing financial hardships due to the pandemic. So that is just one consideration I would like you guys to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Dagat will be our final speaker. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm a high school student from Evergreen. So, in the context of the Black Lives Matter movement, I want you all to keep in mind that, the working class people in our community, especially working class persons of color, disproportionately use public buses. So for the goal of maintaining equity in Silicon Valley, I really urge you to vote yes on 7.5. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of our speakers. I'm now going to go to my colleagues and I will turn to Glenn Hendricks.
Are you ready for a motion?
I am.
I move that we authorize the contract amendment of the 1.75 million to implement a naming rights sales program, item 7.5.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Second.
And I'm sorry, was the second from Chappie?
Yes, it was.
Oh, great. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote.
Carr,
Aye.
Carrasco is absent. Cortese,
Aye.
Dieppe,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo,
Aye.
McAllister,
Yes.
Nunez,
Yes.
Perales,
Aye.
Rennie,
Aye.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Chavez.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. And I wanted to thank the staff for the work they did in the committee. It was very helpful tonight. Thank you. So we're now moving to item 7.6. This is the Congestion Management Program and Planning Committee Chair Rob Rennie will introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. The Congestion Management Program and Planning Committee met on August 20th, and we had an engaged discussion on this item. Item 7.6 is to approve the criteria for the Measure B bicycle and pedestrian planning studies. Last October, we actually did one for the capital for bicycle and pedestrian. So this is criteria for planning studies competitive grants. Our discussion revolved around the community engagement and communities of concern, and we are recommending moving 5 points from the community engagement to the communities of concern criteria. And I believe staff is okay with that. It still supports the community of engagement well enough. And Marcella Renzi, our Deputy Director of Grants and Fund Allocation, and Jane Shin, Senior Transportation Planner, will provide a brief presentation on this item. Their presentation will include the different weights recommended by the CMPP on selected criteria. Take it away, Marcella and Jane.
Thank you very much, Chair Rennie. This is Jane Shin, 2016 Measure B program. Thank you for the intro. I will make this presentation very brief. Next slide, please. The planning studies is the third of our 3 subcategories of the Bike Ped program in Measure B. As Director Rennie mentioned, you did the capital projects criteria this time last year. Next slide, please. This competitive grant program is a 2-year cycle, and for this call for projects, we're looking at about 1.6 million for the grant award. I do want to understand that general plans, master plans, regional planning efforts are not eligible. We are looking for planning studies that advance development of capital projects. And again, all of these projects need to be on attachment A of the measure to be eligible at all. Next slide. Just a quick overview on the main differences between planning studies and capital projects. Planning, we're looking at what's happening now, what's our existing conditions very early in the project development process. So it's oftentimes we don't know what facility types out there. We definitely don't know what the design is, or maybe even the locations. And it's early in the project process. Next slide. Staff have come up with 6 criteria and 1 tiebreaker, leading to 100. It helped us make the math easier. And as Director Rennie mentioned, we have revised our staff's recommended criteria, and I'll just go through these pretty quickly so we can open it up for discussion. Next slide, please. Community engagement. This was the meat of all of the discussions at all 5 of the committee meetings last month. This is, again, planning studies are early in the process, and staff feel that it's very important time to have project sponsors engage the community. What we want to know is, where else are you going to engage the community? What community groups are you thinking about reaching out to? How might you, especially during these times, reach out to the communities? We want meaningful community engagement and not just a check the box. We did this. This is the good time to have the community identify any issues that they might know of that staff may not. And again, this is early in the planning process is better than later on, where maybe designs have already been created, especially upstream during construction even. Next slide, please. Criteria 2 through 4, the 3 you see here are taken straight from the measure. They are worth 20 points each. And I think it's pretty clear what each is intended to do. Next slide. Next slide, please. Targets communities of concern. This we are going with the MTC's definition of communities of concern, as we did with the capital projects criteria. The project can score points if it connects directly to a community of concern, or 50% or more of the limit are within half a mile of the community of concern. The project sponsor does need to articulate how the project would benefit the community of concern. Again, this is a good opportunity to get into the community, to meet with them and see what it is that they need or they want as far as a project goes. Next slide, please. And then finally, our 6th criteria, non-measurable contribution points are awarded if the project brings in more than the minimum required 10% match. Next slide. Should the board adopt our criteria, the criteria this evening, we're working throughout the fall to develop the guidelines and the application, and we hope to have a call for projects by the end of the calendar year. Next slide, please. And as mentioned earlier, we had 5 committee meetings, 4 different recommendations. The staff did go back and we did discuss the committee's recommendations, as well as discussing the weights. So what our revised recommendation does reduce community engagement by 5 points, as Director Rennie mentioned, and increases targets of community concern by 5. We do feel that this still does show the importance in true meaningful community engagement, as well as developing projects in communities of concern. And with that, I end my presentation and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the public comment first, and then I'll go to the board for discussion and action.
Thank you. It looks like we have 2 speakers, Roland and Blair. Roland, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the staff recommendation. But what I want to bring to your attention is how to completely bypass the entire project without any kind of community engagement. Basically, what you got to do is to follow the City of San Jose DOT example and what happened with the Blossom Hill Bike and Ped overpass. All you have to do is to bury the Bike and Ped overpass and the freeway overpass project, and you'll be able to secure, in excess of $35 million in Measure B fund without any questions. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to connect a homeless encampment to the back of an ARCO station on Monterey Highway without any questions from VTA, staff, or the board, or anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Blair, I'm going to unmute you. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, thank you. I think these are part of the ideas of bicycle pedestrian I call them super highways, but highways that, may be of interest to low-income neighborhoods. The project itself was talked about a lot pre-COVID-19. I had my worries. The highways are, going to be right next to highways, automobile highways. So that's going to be gas fumes and stuff like that, and that's a bit worrisome. My big push at this time is to consider ideas of new green concrete and asphalt, and to really consider those kind of options, and how highways can interconnect with low-income communities is an important concept for the future. Good luck on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no more public comment. I'm now going to move to the board. I'm looking for a motion, and that way we can have a discussion under the motion. May I get a motion, please? Nope.
This is Rob. I'll move the staff recommendation.
And Raul, I'll second.
Thank you, Raul. So we have a motion and a second. I'll now go to my colleagues for comments. Jeannie, John, and then Raul.
I want to confirm that the recommendation is the one that gives the 15 points to communities of concern, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I expressed my concern about this when we had our board workshop and we first talked about this. The concern is, I do believe we need to put a lot of emphasis on communities of concern, but I also believe that that can be a responsibility that's done at the local level within each community in terms of which projects they put forward for funding. I believe that we're at a disadvantage in terms of the smaller cities that have really don't have a community of concern, that really lacks that. And when I look at that without looking at the census data, that it appears that maybe 6 of the 15 cities in the county would suffer from that same problem, where they would not score enough points in this particular arena. And so I would strongly encourage not putting that there at 15. Or another way is, if a city is lacking in communities of concern, then whether or not they can make up for it by looking at serving, for example, the safe routes to school, serving schools, because I think that's another area that we struggle in. We struggle in that even if we don't have communities of concerns around our schools. So again, I think we have a hard enough time, small cities have a hard enough time competing for grant money, and this just puts another barrier there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. John?
This, when it came up to CMPP, it was an interesting discussion, because some of us were concerned that whatever suggestion we came up with, the board would probably fine tune it and tweak it to something else. So we moved forward with what we had. But I asked the question is, if we don't get a buy-in from the community, doesn't that help to make it more? I mean, if we get a buy-in from the community, don't we get a better rate of success that people are on board with it? And they said, yeah, that was a good point to consider, that even though we do have areas concerned, that one, we may have to make sure that we get people to know what we're doing, that we reach out to people, that people know it's there. And And it was a toss up a little bit between community engagement and then moving it down to areas of concern. Raul had some discussion on it, and it was interesting, but I made the motion to bring the 2015 to the council because it was just, we needed to have some kind of an area of discussion. But to go along with Jeannie's point a little bit, and we brought it up last time, is areas that may not have areas of concern will still put in projects that will benefit those people from communities of concern. So that was a consideration that we had last time. And I think it should be a consideration this time, but I think it's what we're doing is probably it's going to move a little more quickly and it's a little fair, but those items should be considered moving forward.
Thank you, Raul.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to staff for bringing this recommendation forward, for taking into consideration what we discussed at CMPP. And I do think this helps bring in the necessary equity that we're looking for in this program, and just appreciate and hope my colleagues can support it.
Thank you. We have a motion and we have a second. We have no other comments. Maybe we get a roll call vote.
Carr,
Yes. Aye.
Carrasco is absent. Cortese,
Aye.
Dieppe,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo,
Aye.
McAllister,
Yes.
Nunez,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Rennie,
Aye.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Chavez.
Yes.
Motion passed.
And thank you to the staff. I know that was a challenging line to walk. Well done. All right, so we'll move on to item 7.7. This is to receive an updated forecast on our short-term and long-term financial impacts of COVID-19. If you are a member of the public and you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand now. The staff is going to make a brief report. We'll then go to public comment. Then we'll go to the board. We'll then go to the general manager's report. We have an informational item, and I do want to remind my colleagues, we have a very important closed session. I will find you. No, I'm just kidding. So please hang in there, everybody. Thank you. So we'll now turn this over to Raj.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Can you provide a brief update on the economic outlook on a macro level and the implications or impacts to VTA after that? It's been, if you go to the next slide, it's been somewhat challenging the last 6 months to forecast the economic outlook with any high degree of confidence or certainty. This slide illustrates my point. These are three very different forecasts from the early days of the pandemic. If you look at the first one by Amherst Securities, this talks about what's called a V-shape because of the shape of the curve recovery, which means a quick decline and a very quick climb back itself. So that's one. Same time period, Barclays came up with what is called a U-shaped recovery, which talks about a very steep decline and somewhat of a gradual recovery after that. And the last by UBS is what's called an L-shaped, which means a very steep decline and a pretty modest recovery going back, and the recovery stretching to about 2 years or more. Next slide, please. A little bit later, sometime in July, this was a pretty comprehensive survey done by Reuters of about 60 economists. As you can see from this, nearly 2/3 of the economists surveyed thought the recovery will take 2 years or more to go back to the pre-COVID levels. And about 1/3 of the economists thought it would take 1 to 2 years for the recovery of the economy to go back to where it was before COVID. And the horizontal bar kind of it's a really interesting thing. If you disregard the two outliers on both sides, that the red and the green boxes, the economists were kind of evenly divided that the risk of the economic recovery we are seeing now and the job growth will reverse by the end of the year, and that risk is high. And the other half thought the risk was low. So this is kind of very interesting chart. And if you go to the next one, next slide. This is a more recent one. I guess the consensus now among everybody is the recovery has begun. And Q3, we are in Q3 right now, calendar year Q3, the recovery will be somewhat robust, but then it'll become modest. And it is going to take at least a year, maybe a little bit longer than a year, to go back to pre-COVID levels. With that, let me turn this over to Franklin Wong, Deputy Director of Budget, and he can give you a brief update on what it means for VTA for the fiscal year that just ended on June 30th and the fiscal year 21, which we are currently in. Franklin?
Thank you, Raj, and good evening, board members. Next slide, please. So just want to recap that, right now for our all of our transportation modes, we're stable at about 25% of pre-pandemic ridership levels, bus, light rail, and paratransit. Next slide, please. So we're trying to compare here, between what we budgeted and what are the preliminary unaudited results from the last fiscal year. And these, the column that says fiscal year 20 actual are subject to audit adjustments. So as you can see here, most of our negative variance is pertaining to sales tax related revenues. And more than 2/3 of those originate from our local sales tax measures, particularly, the results from March through June basically account for almost $20 million of our negative variance. And the rest is basically STA and TDA, in which we received $15 million less STA revenues in last fiscal year, and about almost $5 million more of TDA revenues. And for fare revenues, the next category, all of that negative variance actually occurred between April and June. So in other words, for the first 8+ months of the fiscal year, we were in reasonable shape. So the total revenues, as a result, we received about $40 million less than budgeted. If we can focus for just a second to the small table at the bottom, for total expenses, we actually, our total expenses were had a favorable variance of about $39.4 million, which helped us to have better, net operating balance as we have projected in the recent past. So if these numbers survive the audit, we may end up have a net operating balance of $5.5 million, which we will bridge by the CARES Act funding that we recently received. Next slide, please. Going forward into this fiscal year, we look into what we received recently from the UCLA Anderson forecast back in June, and we this is our range of forecasts from left to right, conservative, base, and the more optimistic scenarios. We are looking at about $374.3 million to about $395.5 million in terms of total revenues. And that includes sales tax, fares, and other revenues. In a similar line of thought, we also go back and look at recent expenditure trends. And we are projecting right now that we may end up having a positive variance in terms of total expense, just shy of $500 million. So our projected deficit right now could be in a range of about $101 million to about $122 million, in which to which we're going to, once again, using the CARES Act funding that we received to bridge that gap. So that concludes my brief presentation, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Franklin, and thank you, Raj. We'll go to the public, and then we'll come back to the board for comments, discussion, or questions.
Thank you. It looks like we have 3 speakers, Roland, Eugene, and Blair. Roland, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
So this is Roland explaining this to 1 minute is going to be really hard. And I wish we could see the slides instead of this a gigantic clock while we address the board. The slide I want to talk to you about is number 7. You have to have a breakdown here of what sales taxes we're talking about. Is it 76 Measure A, 2000 Measure A, or 2016 Measure B? What the amount and whether those amounts are for bus and light rail operations. I can assure you they're not, because you're getting roughly $200+ million on 76 Measure B. The board have approved 20%, which is actually at the last page of my letter under public comment. You can see the $50 million. It does not add up to that amount. So in closing, I'd like staff to come back on the 17th, give us a complete breakdown of these measures, and actually report accurately to the board what we're talking about in terms of sales tax revenue for bus and light rail operation. Thank you.
Thank you. Eugene, I'm going to unmute you. Please accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Evening, board members. This is Eugene again. I'm echoing Mr. LeBrun's comments regarding the lack of information that I saw in many of the staff's presentation, especially when I'm learning that in last fiscal year for 2000 Measure A alone, only $15 million was allocated towards light rail and a paltry $2.2 million was allocated towards buses. This out of a ballot measure in which for the last fiscal year, over 86%, about $186 million, about 86% of what was collected from 2000 Measure A went to BART. That's not the balance as the voters we the voters expected it to be. So just like I said, echoing Mr. LeBrun's comments on what he just found, and thank you.
Thank you. Blair, I'm going to unmute you, accept the unmute, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hello, thank you. It was interesting to learn how CARES Act funding works within the VTA here. Thank you. With what has happened with the housing issues at the state level at this time, I feel it's important that we go over, the depth of, how COVID has been introduced to our lives and what we're trying to do at the local level to address that. And we have to take some kind of open-minded approaches to deal with it. And I think we're figuring out a system to do that. And I want to be able to explain in the next months, that we have to be open to that, and it can be okay and safe. And it's doing a good thing, and we don't have to be fearful of it. This will be over hopefully in a couple of years at this point. So thank you for your work.
I'm now going to turn to my colleagues on the board, and I'll start with Glenn and then go to Rob.
Yeah, thank you. So Raj, thanks a lot for this summary report about the impacts to VTA's budget as it relates to COVID-19. And I just want to ask a question here, and it's really about, so we're seeing because of revenues, we have deficits. Am I understanding you correctly that we're anticipating right now, and always subject to change, that the CARES Act funding will allow us to maintain and not have to reduce any service hours? Is that the working assumption right now, subject to new information?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Mr. Hendricks, that's an excellent question. Based on the budget we have, I want to be a little bit careful in trying to answer that question, because right now we are not providing 100% of the budgeted service. We're providing approximately about 75% of the service that's commensurate with the demand we have and all that. If that continues, the answer is yes. We don't have to reduce any further, and we don't have to dip into the reserves either.
Okay, so that's really what I want to get to. And thank you. I know I don't want to make just blanket statements, but for example, at the service levels we have today and the projected deficits on our revenue side, CARES Act funding would let us be able to maintain the existing service hours we have today.
That is correct, Mr. Hendricks. And if you can indulge me, may I, Mr. Hendricks and Madam Chair, respond to a couple of comments that were made by the public speakers, so everybody gets a clear picture of when I talk about sales tax related revenues, if I may.
Sure, thank you.
Number one, these are all sales tax related revenues we get for our operations. When I say operations, it's light rail, bus, and paratransit, not for anything else. And yes, it's certainly 1976 sales tax. In the 20.75% of the Measure A sales tax, which goes towards operation, it is also a portion of the 2016 Measure B that goes towards operations, plus what we get from MTC for TDA and STA. These are all sales tax related revenues. I believe Franklin is in his presentation mentioned predominantly the local, which is what we collect. However, it also includes what we get TDA and STA, which are also based on sales tax. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. This is good information, and I'll look forward to future updates. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Glenn asked one of the questions that I was thinking also, that the summary is we should be okay for FY21. But I think what I heard you say, or I interpret it as, if service starts coming back, which would be a good thing, we're actually going to be a little more in the hole because our fare box recovery is only between 10 and 15%. So we'll get some more revenue, but our expenses will go up more than our revenue. And so then, this budget picture will look a little bit worse. But the CARES Act, it looks like we have enough for FY21, even sort of the conservative case, and have a little bit left over for FY22. I assume that I'm thinking about this correctly.
That's correct, Mr. Rennie.
And so then, the CARES Act number seems like it was moving around a lot. How sure is this very exact number, 141.6 million? Are we now set on that, or could that change again on us?
No, this is the amount we've already received.
Ah, okay. So it can't change on us. They can't take it back. That's what we have. So it looks like, and we can roll it all the way into FY22 also if there's some left over.
Can I get back to you on that?
Okay.
Yeah, there may actually be some time limits for the expenditures, and so yes, we'll have staff just make sure that we're precise on that.
And so would we have to give some back if we don't? Let's assume we had a time limit, or can we use it for something other than this operating budget?
I don't want to give an off-the-cuff response, Mr. Rennie. Let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
I think. Let me just say, I think we're going to find a way to use it.
Yeah.
So
that's what I would hope.
Raj, you can do all the thinking about that you want, but all right. Thank you, Sam. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Madam Chair, I think you pointed to an issue that I was going to raise. Is it a December 2020 deadline for the use of that CARES Act money?
It's a little bit different. That's why I hesitated. I didn't want to give a response. Number one, the CARES Act funding is available for expenditures incurred between January 1 of 2020 through December of 2020. That's one full calendar year. Yes, $141 million is a small portion of the expenses we have incurred in that period. So that's what we base the draw on. And in that regard, we are good. I believe the question was, can we carry it over? That's a little bit more nuanced response. I want to be correct when I respond to that. Hopefully, Mr. Ricardo answered your question. If not, I'll be happy to.
So can you just help me with the source of the ambiguity? Is it because we're not getting very clear guidance from the feds?
No, it's not ambiguity in the sense it's a little bit lengthy response. And let me.
Okay. I'm happy to take it offline if you want.
Let me give you a quick response, then we can certainly take it offline. The quick response is CARES Act funding provides for reimbursement of operating expenses or loss of revenues to provide for operations from the time period from January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2020. So the $141 million was for that, and we have incurred multiples of that during that period, eligible expenditures. So what we have drawn is correct. I do not believe it is subject to, or it will ever be clawed back, because our expenses far exceed what we have drawn down. So hopefully that answers your question. If it's anything else, we can take offline and.
Okay, thank you. And then with regard to the recovery, I know none of us have a crystal ball, nor do any of those economists. But the suggestion that we could be sort of back to normal or something close to it in a couple years. I mean, just looking at the last recession, I'm guessing we went to get back to 2007 levels of probably, at least in the city of San Jose, it certainly wasn't until 2013 or 14. And I can't imagine this recession is going to be a quick recovery either, even if all works well from a COVID standpoint. Wouldn't we want to take a longer view on this recession?
We do, definitely we do. There are two things. Number one, on September 18th of this month, there is a board workshop to talk about service levels. You know, what level of service, you know, that's more to get some guidance from the board on that. We'll be presenting 3 different service options. 70, 80, and 90% of the service levels we were providing pre-COVID and what the implications are. That's one. And followed by, we have already started a biennial budget process for fiscal years 22 and 23. That's beginning July 1. Yes, we will be taking at least a 2-year look forward to see what revenues we can get and what is the prudent level of expenditure service we can afford with that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for that discussion and that presentation. We're going to move on to item 8.1, and this is the general manager's report. And I just wanted to make a quick announcement that there are some folks that have to recuse themselves from one item in closed session. We're going to hear the item relative to 218 first. So therefore, anybody who needs to recuse themselves will be able to leave closed session. So I'll now I'm going to turn it over to the general manager for her report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the board. Good evening. I would like to begin my report recognizing the heroic effort of the women and men of this organization that come to work each and every day to deliver essential transportation services during these past 6 months of the COVID pandemic. So I want to say thank you. Earlier this evening, you adopted a resolution endorsing the Bay Area Rapid Transit, or the Bay Area Transit Plan, which is a set of measures that all of us Bay Area transit operators committed to ensure that the health and safety of our riders. I want to thank you for that as well. The plan was crafted using guidance and best practices from the California Department of Public Health, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the World Health Organization, as well as other transit agencies, what they're applying across the world. Well, next week, as chair of APTA, I will be holding a press event to roll out the APTA Health and Safety Commitments Program, because the health and safety of our passengers and our employees are at the very top of our priority. And the reason I bring this up is that all of these health and safety plans have an underlying similarity. They're not intended to be fully prescriptive. What they intend to do is to demonstrate that we are serious about the safety of our riders, the safety of our employees, and that we want to make sure that the public and our employee workforce understands the things that we're doing and that we're almost similar. We are not striving for 100%, but we certainly want to hit all of those elements that are of great significance to them. The commitment that we're going to be rolling out at the national level includes a safety seal that agencies will add their name to. And once they sign this commitment or this pledge, they'll be able to display outside of their buses and the light rail. So no matter where you go in the country, you see that seal and you know that there is a number of elements that are going to be consistent as it relates to safety and cleanliness. Next, I want to, next slide, please. Some good news. The VTA partnered with the Western Reserve Transit Authority in Ohio and CalSTART to apply for an FTA's Accelerating Innovative Mobility Initiative to support mobility and innovation in the transit industry. We were one of 25 projects from across the country to receive grant funding from FTA. And furthermore, we received the largest share, almost 20% of the grants that were available. And all this total fund will help round out what we need for the project. We're going to use it to deploy the accessible automated electric vehicles that are going to augment first and last mile solutions and paratransit services. VTA will be testing the ability of the automated vehicles to provide more inclusive, equitable, efficient, and cost-effective service under different climates and operating conditions. So the grant project is going to be leveraging the technology and information from previous work to build the next generation accessible automated shuttle capable for operating on city streets at 25 to 35 miles per hour in mixed traffic. This is all part of our innovation that we have launched several years back, and we're now seeing some fruits, some opportunities to start bringing some tangible results. The Federal Transit Administration has what they call the community of practice for their automation and innovation. And we were recently selected to be one of 13 agencies in the country to participate in the FTA Bus Automation Community of Practice. And we were selected because of our active work with the innovative partners that I mentioned before on the automated electric transit shuttle that we will be using at the VA hospital in Palo Alto. So as part of this community of practice, VTA will be able to benefit from practices and shared lessons from bus automation demonstrations and pilots among all the participants that are going to be sharing and encouraging innovation and advancement across the United States. So we're very excited about that. Next slide, please. This is September. And September is Safety Month. I'm going to ask Angelique Gaeta, who is our Chief System Safety and Security Officer, to provide us with a report on the rail safety and security awareness initiatives that we're taking at VTA. Angelique?
Thank you, Nuria. As Nuria said, September is National Rail Safety Month. And although we obviously promote safety practices throughout the year, this is a time of the year where we get to focus on areas of concern that we may be seeing out in our system. Given everything that's going on worldwide, people are not as focused and a bit distracted than they normally are, and their concerns with the health and safety of their families. So the theme this year is don't let your guard down. We want to remind people we're still in operation, and as a result, it's especially important now more than ever to pay attention to the warnings on and around our system. And in case you need a reminder, we'll be providing that reminder on our website, our social media channels. You'll see it in the news media, and then also on our light rail platforms. We would encourage you to share those messages and reminders on your social platforms as well. Separately, although there's no formal campaign for security awareness this month, I'd like to remind everyone that we're coming up on the history of 9/11, or excuse me, on the anniversary of 9/11. And public transit is a known target for terrorist attacks. So please be vigilant when you're riding on or you're around our system. If you see something, say something. We've got our VTA security teams that are comprised of both the county sheriff deputies and allied security private staff. So reach out to them if you see something, get on our VTA alerts, call 911, but you can never be too cautious, especially during these times. And with that, I will turn it back to Nuria.
Thank you very much, Angelique. Let me go to the next slide, please. And, you know, there's this activity that many of us have always looked forward to, and it happened in May, and that was the Bike to Work Day. As those of you who are participating in today's meeting remember, we will meet downtown and ride the bikes along the Guadalupe River Trail all the way to River Oaks campus. Well, now it's called Bike to Wherever Month. September is Bike to Wherever Month. And this is a new spin on the Bike to Work Day, given that we couldn't, because of the pandemic, hold anything in May. So we have partnered once again with the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. And this year's theme accounts for those who are working from home. So September will be dedicated to encouraging cyclists, whether you're seasoned or new, and those who have not ventured out on a bike for quite some time, to get on a bike and get out and ride. There is a website called Love to Ride, And the coalition will award prizes to random participants and recognizing both individuals and teams with the most rides, most smiles, and most people encouraged to ride. And there'll be great prizes. So with that, Madam Chair, I will now, let's see what's next. I believe that the next item is the Government Affairs Report. I believe there's a written report that was provided to members, to the board members, and it's also online. So if there are any questions regarding my report, I will be happy to answer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nuria. There was a lot in there. I'm going to go to the public speakers and then back to my colleagues.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Looks like we have 4 speakers: Eugene, Roland, Alita, and Blair. Eugene, I'm going to unmute you, accept the unmute, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Evening once again, board members. This is Eugene. Just a quick question regarding the grant that you received to test the automated buses. I had a chance to speak with a couple of people that I've been working with, and one of the concerns is that the current driver situation, the current status with the drivers, especially with this automation, with this automated bus program. The concern is if this does go forward and VTA ultimately decides to pursue an automated bus program, what will happen to the current bus drivers? Will they get the training? They'll need to get the training that they'll need to handle at least the automated buses, or as an alternative, at least serve as security that these, since there's going to be no driver to help secure the buses, that's going to be a problem in terms of your security. So consider making sure that the current drivers, particularly with HU Local 265, get the necessary training they'll need to be able to provide for everybody once this automation does happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Roland, accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you again. Couple of quick comments. I hope we're not considering these 25 to 30 mile an hour AEVs for the airport connector. I don't think that would work very well. The other comment I have is that Mayor London Breed in San Francisco is asking bicycle riders to maintain a minimum distance of 30 feet from anybody else when they're riding a bike. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dupree,
30 feet.
please accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Chair Chavez and members, thanks. Alita Dupree for the record. Good report. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do with autonomous vehicles. I have actually ridden one for about a year. There was a similar bus that made a loop route in Las Vegas, in Nevada, in the downtown area on Fremont Street and Container Park. It's a lot of fun. So we've got an example to follow. Again, I really enjoyed the description of the healthy transit program given to Nuria. It really is a prescription with ideas of how to reinforce and show the public that we do care about safe transit. And the various organizations I've talked to have listened to my concerns. As far as biking, let's remember electric bicycles, very helpful to people with disabilities, very inclusive. So again, good report. We're on the way. This is part of great and legendary transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Blair. Accept the unmute and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, thank you. You know, it seems to me that, you know, we have aerosol vaccines that have been developing recently. There's talk of an injected vaccine that'll be ready by November at this point. So things are hopeful. Thank you for the mayor's words that, you know, in a few years' time, we may be out of the serious COVID issues, but we'll have to deal with depressing questions. And thanks for the report on that. I wanted to offer that I really find the bicycle ideas at this time important and interesting, and I find it much more interesting than the AV projects. Hopefully, you know, you can really have good energy towards the bicycle programs and what they can do. And the city of San Jose, they had a report on AVs that you would find very interesting in the Smart Cities Committee today, if you want to check it out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to go to the board and see if there are any comments or questions for the general manager's report. And I'll start with Rob Rennie.
Thank you, Chair. Possibly a difficult question, but with the passage of SB 288, which allows transit projects to skip or go faster through CEQA, do we anticipate that helping any of our projects that we have in process or have planned? I realize we may not have had a chance to think about it, but I thought I'd ask the question.
I don't have an answer, if I may, Madam Chair. I don't have an answer for you. I would look to the staff to do an analysis of that bill and maybe give a presentation at the CMPP.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon me. Any other comments from my colleagues? Jim, did you want to weigh in?
Oh, that's okay. Narita handled it.
Okay, thanks. Well, thank you very much. It's a lot of work, and we'll look forward to the national kickoff of the clean and safe transportation. That's where we need to get, is making sure we have a blanket approach. Item 8.2 is my report. I wanted to just start with a very big thank you to the VTA employees and to Nuria and her team for allowing us to use a historic trolley to have a socially distanced live stream event to honor the 100th anniversary of a woman's right to vote in this country. And it was a really exciting event. We had a number of community leaders there, and you can see everybody with their masks on, and Margaret Abikoga, a former board chair, and Supervisor Ellenberg, and a bunch of women who've been just doing great work throughout the county, and Jay and others, and you can see Nuria there. It was really a very fun event. And so I wanted to say a big thank you. And we got to ride around. That was pretty cool. The other thing I just wanted to do is remind my colleagues that we have a workshop scheduled for Friday, September 18th at 9 a.m. Via video and teleconference. And what's really important at the workshop is we're going to receive an in-depth presentation on the 2021 transportation plan update. And the importance of this is that our staff is already doing community outreach and engagement to get feedback and ideas, so that the staff and reviewing at least 3 options with the public. The VTA service planning, community outreach, and customer service teams are developing the 2021 transit service plan that is taking into account the factors that have been thrust upon us by the global pandemic. Public meetings will largely be conducted virtually, with a heavy focus on partnering with our community-based partner organizations that are diverse and multilingual to make sure we reach deep into the community. The staff asks that you please share information in your newsletters and communications to your constituents so VTA can get as much input as possible. So are there any questions for me on that? Seeing none, are there any items of concern or referral to the administration? Any announcements? John McAllister?
Yeah, under items of concern. So it was sort of talked about a little bit at the your meeting today, Audit and Government, and is that I'm looking at an email that came out at 2:48 today, and there was like 12 items of our agenda had been updated. And we need to find a way that this information can get to us sooner. We don't have time. I don't think most council members or board members have that time between 2:48 and 5:30 to look at all those items and see what's pertinent and to make an informed decision. So I would like to say, my concern is that we need to get this information to us sooner so that we do have time to look at it and refresh it. And so that's, if any way to be able to get information to us, that's what I would ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we can certainly, Nuria, did you want to respond to that?
Yes, I believe that Elaine wanted to explain what the updates was, because I don't think it was that involved, but go ahead, Elaine, quickly.
Yes, this is Elaine. So the changes in the in the board packet included some of the public comments that we have received. Our deadline to receive public comments is at noon today. There were also some changes on the PowerPoint, but they were very minor changes. So I just wanted to make sure the board is aware of that.
Thank you very much. I do think that we can have a conversation in GNA. We've got a big work plan about all the changes we want to make. So we can toss it in and discuss it there as well. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. So we're going to move on to item 9. This is closed session. So what you all have is you have another link. I'm going to ask you to put this on mute and turn off your mic and your video, and then join us on the other in the other meeting. Thank you.
Supervisor Chavez,
Yes, sir.
I think I'm supposed to make my disclosure regarding recusal at this time for closed session while we're still in open session, if
Thank you. You're right. Thanks.
I'm instructed properly. And I will be recusing under 9.1, is that right? 9.1 A and B under Government Code Section 84308. And that's my disclosure. Thank you.
And Londia? Lon?
Yes, I would also recuse under the same item as Director Cortez.
So the two items, A and B?
A and let me double, yes.
A and B, okay. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Just A, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Madam
I'm
Chair,
sorry, Lon, before you go, did you say A and B?
Just A.
So you're recusing under A?
9.1A, yes.
Okay, and Dave under both. All right.
Madam Chair, this is Elaine. We have a hand up on the attendee side on the public.
Under, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me, Elaine, let me just see if I can make sure I'm good in this end. And then, okay, Roland, and this is Roland, you're speaking under item 9?
Roland, you've been unmuted.
Yeah, please unmute him. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Madam Chair, very briefly, could you please double check with Mayor Liccardo that he actually did not intend to rescind himself from voting on item 7.2? Thank you. Or recuse himself.
Mayor Liccardo, I don't believe Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I was trying to find the item. My apologies. I was trying to find it in the agenda. I had not gone to the closed session items yet, and I'm trying to scroll to it now. If someone could
It's
apprise me.
7.2 is the WSP USA 254.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. This is on open session, the one we just considered. Yeah, I believe I recused myself during the committee hearing. And I probably should have done so during the open hearing as well.
For 7.2, okay.
Yes.
So we'll consider that a recusal.
All right, thank you.
7.2, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. LeBrun.
Thank you for catching that. All right, so we are really now going to close session, whether we like it or not. There you go. See you in a few. Elaine?
Yes.
Can you, or Tracine, can you remove your screen as the screen?
Yes. We will stop screen sharing.
Thank you. That would be helpful because otherwise I can't. Thank you.
And we will mute everybody.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Okay. We'll have a report out. I think we have 2 Raouls.
Madam Chair, can you hear me? This is Evelyn.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I can't get my full Zoom screen back up, so I will do it without a screen.
All right. So we're ready for you to report out.
Thank you. For 9.1A, there are no reportable actions taken. I have, for the record, a recusal on that matter from Board Member Cortese, Board Member Diep, and Board Member Liccardo. For 9.1B, no reportable actions were taken by the board. I have recusals from Cortese and Liccardo, and Board Member Diep, who was in open session, was absent. And for 9.1C, I have no reportable action taken.
Very good. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you for thoughtful conversations. Have a great evening, and I will see you all very soon. Good night.
All right, good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, let's end meeting for all.